Hi everyone, welcome back to Lockdown Lessons Part 18. With me today I've got Bill Humphreys from Libra Wealth Management. So if we could just kick off firstly just by saying hello to you, Bill.
Hi Phil, nice to speak to you and all of your watchers.
Good stuff. So I suppose really if you could just explain a little bit more about what Libra Wealth Management do and how they help people, that might be quite a good way to kick off, Bill.
Perfect. Yeah. We are chartered accountants and tax advisors. So most of the work we do is similar to most high street firms, and we do a lot of accounts and tax returns and those sorts of things. But where I think we differ from a lot of accountancy practices is that we are more forward-looking. So a large part of our work is planning and advisory, primarily for owner-managers and their families, obviously, but also for property owners. So a large part of our client base are either in the buy-to-let business, or they are property developers, or generally people who've created wealth over time through property primarily.
Good stuff. And just out of interest, is that more sort of UK based or international?
We do have quite a legacy of international clients. So when the practice started back in 2004, we had a lot of UK resident but non-domiciled individuals. So quite often people who'd come to London to work for the banks and then either stayed long-term or gone back home again, but retained UK assets. So we have a very international client base. But I think the owner-manager segment that I mentioned, they are predominantly Brits and predominantly in London and the Southeast.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So if we could cast our mind back to sort of the beginning of the first lockdown, the end of March this year, at what point did you think, hang on a minute, things are going to be changing around here, not necessarily for your business, or maybe including your business, but also for the people you're dealing with and the people you're helping?
I think with the benefit of hindsight, probably say we recognise there was a problem too late. So I think there was a lot of complacency generally, and we're getting news from Hong Kong and then Italy, and I don't think any of us really thought it was necessarily coming our way. So a little bit of complacency, and even to be honest, when we closed the office on March 23rd, we sort of said to everybody, I'll see you in 3 weeks, sort of thing. So we never really were geared up with the expectation that the working from home was going to be anything other than temporary. On the positive side, I think we probably started to see some commercial issues with some of our clients a little bit before, so maybe even as early as January. So, and I remember actually when Chinese New Year came around, whenever that was, beginning of February maybe, and we have some clients who import and export, and import primarily from China, and they were already experiencing supply chain difficulties. So I don't know how much you know about that market, but Chinese New Year, I think the whole market virtually closes down for a week or so to celebrate and enjoy the holidays. So there's always a bit of interruption in supply chain. But in view of COVID, some of my clients were already talking about 3 or 4 week delays even back then. So we started to realize there could be some commercial issues for our clients, but like everybody else, we maybe underestimated quite what was coming our way.
I agree. I mean, I was saying to people, yeah, I think we'll be done in 3 weeks. And someone said to me, oh, no, I think it could be 4 weeks. And I was saying, no, 3 weeks, it'll be all over. And I regret some of the assumptions I made at the time. And I probably learned a lot from my mistakes back then. So what ways did Libra have to adapt when we actually got stuck into sort of, middle part of April, end of April, and we realized this actually wasn't really going to go away?
Yeah, good question. And sort of looking back, it looks like we were very well prepared for it. I mean, that was more good fortune than good planning, to be frank. About 2 years ago, we changed all of our technology onto a cloud-based system, so that even though we didn't use it, we all had the ability to work remotely. And occasionally people would work remotely if they had sort of odd days here and there. But so we were very fortunate in that we were set up. We had to go out and buy a couple of little bits of hardware for people to work from home, but generally speaking, we were well prepared and flexible enough to do that. We're also, I don't know why, but we're in a business where we're prolific on email. So a lot of our client communication, especially for clients in other time zones, was by email anyway. So it wasn't too much face-to-face. So we were quite fortunate. So we didn't feel like we had to do an awful lot to get ready. With the passage of time, we've realized that there are some things you need to do to make sure people are happy and comfortable and not going cranky whilst working from home. So we've stepped up the level of frequency of communication amongst the team, and sort of daily check-ins, with your sort of immediate peers. And we probably have changed the way we report. So we probably have more targets and KPIs now than perhaps we did 7 or 8 months ago, because of that working remotely and not being in the same office and shouting out what we're working on and what the next problem is.
Yeah, I suppose there are challenges with that. There are certainly a whole heap of benefits of working from home or working remotely, but there are also a few downsides, and that there are areas that we need, challenges that we've got that we need to address. So I think, additional targets and KPIs is something I've seen other businesses have to go down as well, because people didn't necessarily know how they were getting on, and they do need to be reminded sometimes of, am I doing well? And I think when you're not with people and you're not able to say thank you for something they've done well because you haven't seen it, then they might feel a little bit isolated. So I agree with you there, Bill. So what wins would you say that you've had since sort of March, April time for Libra?
I would have thought, and I'm not the first person who probably said this to you, Phil, I think the acceleration at which we've had to adapt and take up technology has probably been the biggest win. Video conferencing, this type of forum's a perfect example. It's been around forever. It's been around for years, but we didn't use it. I didn't know what Zoom was in February. So I think the wins are the rate and the pace at which we've taken on that technology, and they are fabulous products, aren't they? All of the apps out there that we're using now are second nature. And I don't want it to sound like we're really skillful with the way we've used them, because they're simple to use, but because we were forced to use them, I think that's really helped us create some efficiency. And now we're using video in very different ways. So we send instructional videos to clients, or telling them how to incorporate a new company. We've even used some instructional videos amongst the team, sort of saying, or if you go in this part of the software and you click on this little button, this is what will happen. So those are the obvious things. And I think probably the biggest win has been bonding with our clients, particularly in March, April, May. And I think a lot of the work we do is compliance-based. Clients, I think, value that, but nobody really says, I need a set of accounts or I need a tax return. They're really just trying to comply with the law. But in March, April, May, we were genuinely helping our clients on things that were genuinely important to them. So I think that's been quite a win, and quite rewarding. I don't mean financially. We took a view as a business that we wouldn't charge for that. Sorry, we wouldn't charge additional fees for that support. But quite rewarding in terms of knowing that you are making a difference.
Sure, and also you've probably built up some long-term goodwill with clients who are going to remember the help and support you gave them when times were tough. So I think that was a fantastic move on your part. So is there anything, I suppose, that you would have done, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done sooner, maybe last year, the year before, that's actually helped your business? Forgetting about lockdown for a moment, but the things you've been forced to do in lockdown, would you have done those earlier, or would you have actually just run the business exactly the same over the last few years?
No, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but had we have known and understood how accessible this technology was and how easy it is to incorporate, and how willing clients would have been to adopt and to use that technology as well, I think we would have been doing it at least 2 years earlier. So that's probably the obvious difference, I would say.
Fantastic. So would you say you've learned anything about yourself over the last few months as well?
I'm afraid so, yeah. I mean, well, some of these things I knew, but I didn't realize quite how extreme I was, or I am. So I think probably like a lot of owner managers, when you run your own business, you do become a bit obsessed. You do become a bit of a control freak, and probably a little bit too hands-on, and maybe guilty of micromanaging. I've got a very talented and very well-qualified team of people, so they don't need to be micromanaged. They know what they're doing, but there is something about being remote that makes you even more of a control freak. So I found myself looking at where full stops were in people's emails, and just far too detail oriented. So and it's quite difficult to change. I mean, I knew I was like that. I'm more extreme than I imagined, but trying to manage yourself when you know it's there is very challenging indeed. Not for me, but for my team as well.
It's good. I mean, self-awareness is a fantastic thing. I think, you do bump into a few people in life that are very self-aware, which I think is fantastic. But in all honesty, a lot of the people I meet, they're not as self-aware as they possibly could be. So then it's my job to ask them some challenging questions to help them work it out for themselves, rather than me attack them, attack their character. So I suppose really by wrapping up this, one thing might be quite good if you could explain to the people that watch this who your ideal clients are. So at least if they are your ideal clients, or if maybe they know somebody who you could help, they'll then be able to get in contact with you or put somebody else in contact with you. So who would your ideal clients be then, Bill?
I would say probably a couple of different segments, but the ideal, I would say, is the owner manager. So okay. Somebody, sorry, let me extend that, not just owner manager, but what you often hear affectionately called a micro entrepreneur these days. So people who, for whatever reason, have decided they don't want that corporate life anymore, and they're going to set up their own micro business and leverage technology or drive the van for Amazon, whatever it happens to be. So I think we're seeing more and more of those sorts of people out there. So owner managers, whatever form they take, and wherever they are on their journey. So a lot of the work we do is helping clients decide what's the best ownership structure for their business. Should they be sole trade, a partnership, limited company? And then as the business evolves and grows, helping them with the range of tax reliefs and allowances available, whether it's R&D tax credits, or if they're bringing in other investors, things like EIS relief and SEIS relief. So lots of really good tax advantaged planning that's there. And as HMRC keep telling people, is really underused. So it's there, they want to use it, and people aren't claiming it. All the way through to maturity, where maybe people are either trying to attract new investors or maybe trying to extract themselves from the business. So looking at succession and exit. And throughout that process, a lot of the work we do is what we call is working with profit extraction. So what is the optimal way for an owner manager to get his reward out of the business? Is it salary or pension or dividends or some combination of those? So really helping clients along that journey. And just to add to that, the other segment where we're very engaged is the property owners and the property developers that I mentioned. So I would say those two segments are really where we can add the greatest value.
Good stuff. I think the problem is with most owner managers and property investors is that they don't take enough time. They don't put enough time aside to actually plan where they're going and how they're going to get there. And usually I heard a quote. I must have been out 3 or 4 weeks ago. There was someone once said, someone much cleverer than I am once said, for every hour you spend planning, you tend to save 10. Now, obviously, that's not an exact science, as we know, but it did make a lot of sense that if we can actually invest, just putting a little bit of time in our diary to actually spend looking at our investments, looking at our business structure, looking at the tax we're paying, and maybe working with someone like yourself to help guide them through the myriad of schemes that there are out there, perfectly legitimate schemes whereby they could actually mitigate some tax, then why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you have a conversation? So I suppose finally, the best thing to do is if you could just explain to people watching, Bill, exactly how they can contact you best. And what I'll do is I'll just key that into the comments below so people can reach you easily.
Certainly, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, we're prolific on email. So if something's urgent, I know it sounds a little bit contrarian, but if it's urgent, if you email me, you can be pretty sure I'll look at it that day. So email bill@lwmltd.com and call me on my mobile 07810 375 731, or just access me directly on LinkedIn. Any of those should get directly through to me.
Good stuff. Well, thanks so much, Bill. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you, and I know we're going to catch up soon. So I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Phil. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.